So, this is definitely a time. If we want to do this, this is not going to happen from outside. Because you know the great experiment, Karl Marx. I don't know how many of you are exposed to him because those of you who come from the West, he is a devil. In India, at one time, everybody was reading Marx, not anymore. They only read comic books these days. So, Marx is a very compassionate human being. He thought, if you bring communism in its purest form, not the way it is today, that means everybody lives according to their needs and fantastic life. This can only happen when human beings have great regard, respect and love for each other. But he thought he could do it politically, and what a mess! What a mess! Because wherever they try to bring communism, in major ways, the number of people who died because of this is unbelievable. In the 20th century, over 100 million people have died for this one ideology, but this is for the people. This whole ideology is about the people, the significance of common people. Over 100 million people, they can't be kings, there were no 100 million kings, ordinary people who died, 100 million people. So, this is because a great idea, you try to implement it from the wrong end, this is a disaster. This can be done in so many ways, but today, why communism failed is because Marx might have known so much about the economy and stuff, but he failed to understand human nature. He genuinely believed, he openly spoke about it, that the first nation which will become communist is United States. How wrong is he? Mr. Sanders is trying, but that's not going to happen. He thought the wealthiest nations in the world will become communist and then they will share with everybody and we will create a wonderful world. Great idea. But always the poorest of the poor became communist in the world. Even today, it is always the poorest of the poor who are communist. What this essentially means is, those who have something do not want to share. Those who don't have anything want to share. So in the end, instead of becoming a great romantic philosophy, it just becomes an ideological robbery. So, you have wealth, I have nothing, I will talk about sharing. You know from where the sharing will happen. You don't agree, we'll take your head off and share it among ourselves. This becomes ideological robbery. Ultimately, unfortunately, that's how it ended up. What was a great philosophy, at that time, every thinking person in the world was so excited about communism. They thought this is the greatest ideology, the world will change. But just the reverse happened, because those who have don't want to share, those who don't have want to share. Terrible idea it became. So, this happened. I never told you about Jung Shankaran Pillai's childhood, did I? No. When Shankaran Pillai was a 12-year-old boy, one day he went out and he brought a 100-rupee note. Those days, 100 rupees is lots of money. And he brought a 100-rupee note and he said he found it on the street. His mother looked at him and said, Did you really find it on the street? Just checking if the boy stole the money or something. He said, no ma, I definitely found it. It was on the street. I even saw that man looking for it. So, this is happening from outside, it'll become ugly. Even now what I'm talking about, rejigging our economy, should not happen from outside, it'll become ugly. Again, with laws and force, it won't work. It needs to happen with a certain sense of inclusiveness. When Parvati came to Adi Yogi, and she's a proud woman, princess. So she's seeing the Saptarishis sitting there in a very dedicated, committed way. Years and years are going by, Shiva is talking and talking and talking, trying to impart this science. Every step is taking such a long time for them to understand, grasp, experience, soak it in, it's taking time. But the privilege of being a wife gives her a little bit of a swagger. Then she says, I want to know this too. But Adiyogi knows she will never sit like this in front of him for years and years and learn step by step. He looks at her and he says, you come, sit here. Then she thinks, that's an insult. That means you're questioning my intellect. You're just saying, come, sit on my lap. Says, no, no, come. Then he touches her in 114 different ways and she becomes a part of him. By being a part of him, she knows everything that he knows, but she still maintains her individual nature. This is the only way you can transform the world. You need to touch them in ways that in some way there is some integration, there is some union, there is some inclusiveness. When inclusiveness happens, then you don't have to use force to change anything. Right now anyway, the force has been applied by the virus. I'm talking about taking advantage of this situation. But unless every nation goes for it, that's not going to happen because we're always afraid somebody will run away ahead of us. This problem is there. So we must do the bird call, let's make the planet great again. What the birds are saying, if the same sense enters into every human mind and all of us start thinking in terms of making the planet great again rather than my country great again, because as I said, for an ideology, 100 million people have died in a century. For the sake of religions that you believe in, nobody counted how many millions have died, endless number of people have died. The next largest tyranny is nationalism. For the sake of the nation, people die, even today, proudly die. Well, it is very necessary right now to protect the borders of a nation, the sovereignty of a nation, because still my piece of planet versus your piece of planet, fighting is going on. In some way, we need to relax the boundaries of nations. National boundaries have to be relaxed. That is not possible when there is so much economic disparity. If we reasonably bring it to some level, it is like chicken and egg, which should happen first. No, all these things must happen together. Somebody should have the wisdom to bring all these things together. If national boundaries become not totally obliterated, at least little loose, then who will build an army? For what? For whatever internal situations you may have a force, but you will not have such mega forces right now which are capable of destroying the planet over many, many times. They've got enough weaponry Even the next planet that we may go to, suppose we go to Mars and we want to destroy that, for that also we have enough bombs and armaments and everything. So we prepared for 3 planets' destruction, but we have only one. Really forward thinking. We have to… We don't know if that will even happen in this generation, but if this generation start thinking on those lines, maybe next generation will implement it. If this generation starts thinking… See, once you start thinking in a certain direction, knowingly, unknowingly you will start going there. You don't have to necessarily forcefully march in that direction. Once you start thinking, let's say you started thinking Vellangiri Mountains, Vellangiri Mountains, Vellangiri Mountains, Vellangiri Mountains, unknowingly you will be somewhere around here. That's how it is. That's the nature of a human being. So we should get people to think beyond the boundaries and borders that we have set, and above all, this endless need that we have created. One important thing for this to happen is we must destroy. I'm saying this very consciously. For all those… because I'm smiling, people think I'm not serious, I'm very serious. We must destroy the present education system if we want to do some genuinely positive things about the ecology, because that is where the key is. Yoga yoga yogeshwaraya bhuta bhuta bhuteshwaraya kala kala kaleshwaraya Shiva Shiva Sa